Hey guys, happy quarantine. For those of you who do not know me, I am Denise Whalen. I am the Director of Youth Ministry and the Coordinator of Confirmation at St. James. Today our topic is Models of Light, the Saints, and we are on now day 4 of our little mission. So I am very lucky. I get to read every year 90 plus essays about saints from our confirmation kids. So every year I get to learn about new saints and some new facts about saints that I thought I knew almost everything about. The kids surprise me every year with some of the stuff they come up with. So it's really, really exciting. Also, those who know me well, I love novenas. I absolutely love novenas. When you're just kind of overwhelmed and you don't even know where to start with prayer, I always turn to the saints and novenas. The saints are just real humans like us. They are not some special being without sin. They were real humans that also sinned. So I think that's also really cool that they're just like us. They all messed up. They all made mistakes. They all fell at some point, but they overcame and never lost faith in God. So I'll be giving you some examples and stories of some amazing saints throughout this talk. But first, I want to read a passage from the Bible, Colossians 1:9-14. For this reason, since the day we heard it, we have not ceased praying for you and asking that you may be filled with the knowledge of God's will in all spiritual wisdom and understanding, so that you may lead lives worthy of the Lord, fully pleasing to Him, as you bear fruit in every good work, and as you grow in the knowledge of God. May you be strong with all the strength that comes from His glorious power, and may you be prepared to endure everything with patience, while joyfully giving thanks to the Father, who has enabled you to share in the inheritance of the saints in the light. He has rescued us from the power of darkness and transferred us into the kingdom of His beloved Son, in whom we have redemption for forgiveness of souls. Let's just focus on verse 12 for a moment. Giving thanks to the Father, who has enabled you to share in the inheritance of the saints in the light. This shows us that we are living saints. We are meant to be with the saints in the light. We are called to be with the saints. We are called to be with them in the light. It's right there. Paul wrote it to the Colossians. So how are you living as a saint? And how can we continue to live as saints? So these are some things I'm going to address as we go through this talk. On Sunday, you guys heard from Father Mike about the baptismal candle and how it is a symbol of light, and that light is all about being people of light, bringing hope, of peace, of God's love. So that's really, really neat. That made me immediately think about some stories of Mother Teresa that I've learned over the years, and how she was that light and that hope and peace of God's love to people. So many of you guys know Mother Teresa won the Nobel Prize, right? Okay, many people don't know the really cool story that goes with it. So before she left to receive the Nobel Prize, before she got on a plane, this old man who she had helped at some point gave her a few pennies. It was all he had. And she was like, no, you keep it. And he goes, no, use it for your ministry. And it's just a few little pennies, but it was everything he had, which means way more than, $1 million from someone who can give it no problem. So she went and got the Nobel Prize, right? And then later on in the evening, she didn't know where it was. So someone literally asked her, where's the Nobel Prize? She goes, I don't know. She literally lost it. But when she got back to India, guess what was still in her pocket? Those little pennies. Those couple little pennies were still in her pocket, because that's what meant something to her. She shined her light to this old man, and then he shined it back to her. I think both in that moment were living saints. We know Saint Teresa is now actually a canonized saint, and I believe that old man was also a saint as well. And we're all called to be those living saints. Another really neat Mother Teresa story was So she was apparently late for the airport. I think this may have been actually the same time as the Nobel Prize, but I can't remember for sure. So she was running late for the airport. And this lady grabbed her, and security was trying to push people off of her. And she's like, no, like, let me talk to this person. And this lady, her son had been missing. He was a drug addict and was missing. And she's like, I'll pray for you. And she got in the car, and on the way to the airport, she's like, stop. And they're like, no, you're running late. You can't stop. And she's like, no, stop the car. She got out of the car where she saw this man on the side of the road, and it was that lady's son. So again, she's bringing the light to all of those, and people could see it off of her so much that they went to her. One of my favorite stories is actually how she showed the light to someone else so they could see the light. So Brother Brennan, I think was his name. So he had given this talk to the founder of Catholic Mission Trips, who gave it to us when I worked for them. And so he was helping Mother Teresa, and he was helping clean up this guy that she had pulled out the streets. This homeless man who had maggots growing out of like wounds. Like, that's how dirty he was. And he's like trying to clean him up, and he's shaving him, and he's like trying to not gag the whole time. But he's doing it, and he's like, all right, this is what I'm supposed to do. He's like, I don't know how people see Jesus in this. Like, whatever, but I'm supposed to do this. And then as he was shaving, all of a sudden, the man's face transformed to Jesus. And when Mother Teresa came in and saw him, he just looked at her, and she noticed on his face this look, and she goes, you saw him, didn't you? And Brother Brennan just goes, saw who? She goes, you saw Jesus, didn't you? And he's like, how did you know? So her light then shined into someone else for him to see the light through another person. And so she has this quote, each one of them is Jesus in disguise, each person. And so they're all also the light, because we are living saints. And how are you going to be the light to them? And then how are you going to see the light from them as well is a huge question. You know, sometimes it's harder to sometimes see the light in others. And sometimes it's hard to see the light in yourself. So how can you not only be the light and see that in yourself, but how can you also see the light in others as well? Through service, by serving them, or from them serving you, or however. So, you know, that's just an amazing way of showing the light. Like, how can you be like Mother Teresa and be a people of bringing hope and peace of God's love? So that's my big stuff on Mother Teresa. Then on Monday, you guys heard from Cecilia. Something stuck out for me as she was talking. She said, seeing God move in your life is not a coded message if you look. But are we missing the light shining in your face during this pandemic? I was like, oh my gosh, like, yes, because, you know, he always gives us little hints, but do we always pick up on it? Like, are we looking for them? Are we seeing them? You know, are we seeing those little pieces of light that he's always shining at us? And, you know, sometimes we're missing them. And, you know what? I think that's okay. I think it's okay to miss. I mean, you don't want to miss them, but, like, it's okay if you miss them. Again, if you look at some of the saints, a lot of them have missed quite a bit. I mean, look at Doubting Thomas. He literally had Jesus telling him all the time, all these stories. He saw everything, as well as he saw Jesus perform all these miracles. Yet he didn't believe the apostles that he rose until he got to put his fingers in his wounds. Like, I mean, and he was literally with Jesus all the time. So how many times did he miss a sign or something? You know, I think we miss signs all the time. Another good one is Ignatius Loyola. So Ignatius Loyola, this is one of my favorite memes. I used to be a sinner like you, then I took a cannonball to the knee. So how many signs do you think God gave him before he was like, all right, you know what? You ain't getting this. I'm hitting you with a cannonball. Like, I mean, and then he started the Jesuits. Pope Francis is a Jesuit even. So I was just like, boom, like, yes, like, how many times are we missing it? Because we're not looking. And so, like, then he does something drastic. And like Paul, he literally killed Christians. So how many times do you think those Christians preached to him? How many signs do you think that was? God being like, hey, dude, you see, like, come on, No, it said he had to literally get knocked off a horse. And then God was like, all right, you get it now? So, I don't know, that really stuck out to me about just how some of the saints don't even see the signs in front of them. And so, because they're not looking. And they were still saints. So, you know, when we miss those signs, we need to turn back and be like, oh, right, let's look at this again. And try to find that light and look for that light that he is shining every day to us and through us. He's talking to us in all the little things. Like Saint Therese, she's one of my favorites because she always did all the little things. And so she would always find God in all these little things and all the light. So she was like the perfect person to like be able to find the little things. And I'm like, man, why can't I always find little things? Because she sees the light in all the little things. It's really cool. So she actually lived in the darkness of the soul for many years, which is where you don't feel God at all. You feel completely lost. You don't feel God, yet you're still living for him. So, you know, she wasn't hearing him at all. But so she started these deed beads, which is like a little bracelet with 10 beads on it. I normally have one on my wrist, and I actually left it at home, and I'm really sad about that. But and when she would sacrifice something each day, or something would annoy her, she'd move one over and just offer it up. And it would be just her little way of sacrificing and prayer every day for God. And so those are really, really neat things. So actually, these deed beads, one day St. Therese's sister gave her a set of beads on which to count of little acts of love and sacrifice offered to God. Young Therese would pull a bead when she postponed a treat or let someone have their way. Therese's mother wrote, even Therese wants to start making sacrifices now. So it was like her little way of making these sacrifices and being that light and showing that light in all these little ways. One of my favorite quotes of hers is, miss no single opportunity of making some small sacrifice, here by a smiling look, there by a kindly word, always doing the smallest right and doing it all for love. So yeah, she literally did all these little things for love. When I lived in Guatemala, it really showed me how to be that light and be that living saint in the smallest of ways. While I was there, I lived at a mission that was founded by Father Greg Schaefer. Father Greg was based out of Minnesota, and when he had been only a priest for 5 years, he got sent down to Guatemala, and he started this mission. And from building houses to a clinic to a women's center, coffee plantations that are fair trade. And so I got to do all sorts of things to help with this. And some days it was literally pulling weeds. And you're like, how is this serving? But then you think of St. Therese and you're like, the little ways. The little ways. And then this picture is Maria. She, let's see if I can get it clearer on there. She was a little lady who her family was all killed during the violence in the Civil War. And so sometimes it was just even hugging her, being with her. And he loved her like family, and he would take care of the people. He was a light for the people. On his 50th anniversary of being a priest, this was the celebration. You literally couldn't see how far the people went. And even they had representatives from the Vatican there. Pope Benedict XVI actually wanted to come, but he was not able to. It was incredible. It was incredible to see how many people came. He is everything of a living saint. His light shined brighter than anything. I got to spend a lot of time with him. I have lots of video with him. And he's an incredible, incredible person. Everyone he met, he just loved, and you could see that love. And he's a true model of light and a true living saint. And his best friend was Blessed Stan Rother. Blessed Stan Rother also got put down in Guatemala. He was from Oklahoma. in a town about 30 minutes from San Lucas, where Father Greg was. And during the Civil War, he was actually killed. He was a martyr for serving the people. So he was beatified on the decree of martyrdom. Father Greg rarely talked about Father Stan. However, when he did, it was incredible. It was a saint talking about a saint, basically. It was amazing. And so this is the chapel that was Father Stan's bedroom that he actually was killed in. They turned it into a chapel now. And so in Guatemala, after 10 years of after dying, they moved the body. So remember that as I get into this story. So Father Stan and Father Greg at both times were on the kill list during the Civil War, and they were sent to the U.S. Father Stan reluctantly went. And then he was like, as soon as I'm off that list, tell me I'm coming back. So Father Greg called him when he found out he was off that list. And he was like, but don't come back yet. Like, don't come back yet. Please don't come back yet. He's like, I'm coming back. He's like, if they want to kill me, I will leave my blood with my people. That's what he said. He was like, I will leave my blood with my people. He hadn't been back long when they killed him. And when they killed him, they soaked up his blood and put it in a jar. And his heart and his blood were buried in Guatemala, and his body was buried in Oklahoma. So after 10 years, they moved the heart and the blood from where it had been buried to the final burial place. And when they pulled the jar of blood out, it was still liquid. And Father Greg just goes, when he's telling us the story, he goes, he did it. He really did it. He left his blood with his people. Blood doesn't stay liquid like that. So that right there is a miracle that he has done. He left liquid blood with his people, and it's still liquid to today. They have a little vial of it on the altar in his chapel. That was his bedroom. I could go on and on and on about different saints and how they are the light and how they give me hope and strength to try to be the light as well. Especially the modern day ones like Mother Teresa, Blessed Stan Rother, Father Greg, JP2. I could go on and on and on, but I'll just leave you with a few final thoughts now that I think you've probably heard me talk enough. As I've been doing this mission with all of you, something that really stuck out to me that fits with being living saints was Father Mike talked about a bishop who said during this pandemic, no one can take away the power of our baptism. Our baptism makes us living saints. We are washed clean and we become beacons of God's light through our baptism. And no matter what is going on, no one can take that power away. No one. We can't go to Mass? Fine. You still can't take away my power of my baptism. And that's what calls us to be living saints. Lastly, I'm going to leave you with my favorite quote. One person may not be able to change the world, but you can change the world for one person. So how can you change the world one person at a time?